I'm very humble to say that Errol Spence Jr. is a complete fighter. It's not about him becoming a complete fighter. Errol Spence Jr. is a complete fighter. I'm expecting that as my next fight.
What if that's not to come until the summertime then?
Well, it's already been said. I'm the mandatory for the WBO. Amazing fight with Terence Crawford, or the winner of this, Errol Spence Jr., who has the WBC and the IBF title.
Which do you prioritize?
I kind of prioritize, Terence Crawford, for the simple fact that you have not seen me in the ring with Terence. You've seen what happened with Errol Spence Jr. It's about coming back, fixing some wrongs, and beating him. But I think with Terence Crawford, whole new story, a whole bunch more conversation that has not been had yet, and that's why I favor that one. However, the way he looked tonight, you let me know when you're ready to go. I'm expecting that as my next fight.
So Shawn Porter, he scored this fight in which he gave Danny Garcia 4 rounds. I'm looking at the scorecard right now. Shawn Porter, he gave Danny Garcia the 4th, the 9th, the 10th, and the 11th round. So do you agree with the scorecard? Shawn Porter said that I saw 8 rounds to 4, one early run. Errol took 2 rounds off. Then Danny Garcia stole the 10th round. He said that he not biased or anything like that. He congratulated Errol Spence. So what's your take on that scorecard? How did you score the fight? Do you agree with Shawn Porter or not?
I kind of agree with Shawn Porter, except I had him 3 rounds. I kind of gave Danny, like, I want to say the 9th and the 10th. And I don't know if it was the 5th also. I gave Danny three rounds. Those 3 rounds, I think, like the truth said in his before he had the fight, 70% him can beat Danny Garcia, and that's pretty much what I seen. I don't think that Earl was at 20%.
You mean 100%?
And the rounds I think he took, he was pretty much lacking off and getting a breather pretty much.
Right. It seemed like he was going 100 miles per hour, and then out of nowhere, he went 70 in the 9th round, and that's when Danny Garcia had his second win. Danny Garcia is a game opponent. For Errol Spence to have a tune-up with him, Errol Spence deserved all the credit in the world. So as far as Shawn Porter, he obviously looking at a Crawford fight, and also he's eyeing Errol Spence rematch. Which fight would you prefer for Shawn Porter? Because he seemed to be more interested in an Errol Spence fight.
I kind of want to see him and Terence Crawford just because I haven't seen it. I want to see it, how that fight, the outcome of that, how Terence Crawford reacts to Shawn Porter and what that fight looked like. Right. I think it'll kind of pretty much give an example of where Bud would stand fighting against some of the top tier fighters.
Right. Shawn Porter, he fought Danny Garcia. He fought nearly every welterweight but Terence Crawford. That's why we want to see him against Terence. Obviously, Errol Spence outperformed Shawn Porter against Danny Garcia. He dominated Danny Garcia more than any of his previous opponents have. So knowing that Errol Spence beat Danny Garcia and Shawn Porter, now mind you, both Danny and Shawn Porter fought for that WBC belt that was vacant. I think it was Keith Thurman belt, if I'm not mistaken. So Errol Spence already beat them both. I'd rather see Shawn fight a Crawford, to be honest, because in my humble opinion, Errol Spence fought Shawn Porter game and beat him at his own game when he was cutting corners. Obviously, we saw tonight that Errol Spence, even though he was 100% dedicated, he wasn't 100% because remember, when Errol Spence fought Shawn Porter, I think 2 months before the fight, he was like 180, 190 pounds. And he still cut off the weight. He was fighting to make the weight. He stated that he was pretty much in training camp to make the weight instead of applying his strategy in order to execute fight night. And he still managed to fight Shawn Porter at his own game, go toe-to-toe in a classic fight in which he won, in my book, 8 rounds to 4. You know, he managed to drop Shawn Porter as well. So knowing that and the fact that Errol Spence is more dedicated now, we saw against Danny Garcia that he's not 100% because even when Errol Spence was cutting corners, he don't gas out. You don't normally see Errol Spence gas out, let alone he even admitted that he gassed out. You know what I mean? One thing to gas out is another to admit. So obviously the ring rust definitely had an effect on him. So I would prefer to see Errol Spence versus Ugas Keith and Shawn versus Terence Crawford. What's your take on all of the above?
Yeah, I heard you say like you think you would rather see him take another tune-up fight pretty much at a top-tier fighter. I kind of think like this was his tune-up fight. So like I think he would be ready. Like this fight just let him know that like he still got work to do. He got to get in shape if he want to fight Terence Crawford. I think that he instead of like going after a Keith Thurman or Ugas, I really think he's gonna go where the money at. And
what
I
is
think
that?
it's gonna be either
What is the money fight?
Pacquiao or Terence Crawford.
Right. Now,
I
could see Pacquiao. Yeah, I see Pacquiao all day. I mean, that's a no-brainer. But Terence Crawford, the reason why I don't want to see that next, because I'd rather see an Errol Spence that's 100% in the ring first before I see that. He wasn't 100% tonight. You clearly see him gassing out and stuff like that. The 100% Errol Spence could have possibly stopped Danny, but nevertheless, I think it will be wise for him to take another tune-up. And, I mean, when I say a tune-up, it's not really a tune-up. It's a fight against another A-level opponent. So it's really not a tune-up in my book. Crawford is a bad boy, man. You know, Crawford, you don't want to go in that ring with Crawford if you're not 100% or you're still thinking and debating, oh, I don't know if I'm 100% or not. Nah, you need to have them questions answered before you go into a fight like that, because Crawford is a different beast. He a different animal. When Crawford fought Kell Brook, you could see him. He beat fighters different ways. He outsmarted Kell Brook and knocked him out quick. So you don't want to gas out against Crawford, in other words, because that will be a disaster for Errol Spence.
That's pretty much why I want to see Crawford fight Porter, because true enough, I give Crawford his credit. He did what he was supposed to do against Kell Brook and like in impressive fashion. He like handled his business. But at this point in Kell Brook's career, I think he on the downslide. And Porter's pretty much maintaining his stamina in as far as among welterweight.
Yeah, Remy only. I think Crawford got to fight a top guy before Errol Spence. He don't gotta, but if Errol Spence is not next, he obviously got to stay busy. So the best way to stay busy is to take care of his mandatory Shawn Porter. And Errol Spence, he could possibly fight another champion, Ugas Pacquiao, or a name opponent like Keith.
Yes, I agree with. I kind of agree with that. I want to see him against like everybody you put in front of Terence Crawford. He did what he was supposed to do to him. He took care of business and got him away. But I want to see him fight a top tier welterweight in his division and then see. Because as far as the eye test, he passes the eye test. But a lot of people, his knock is his resume. At 147, that's been his knock. So like, I want him to I want him to fight the Keith Thurmans and the Shawn Porters, because both Errol Spence and Crawford both has defended their title 5 times each. Except the competition is way stiff on PBC. So
Crawford still got a solid resume at 147. I mean, the Benavidez of the world, the Kell Brooks, and the guys he fought, they still good names, even Jeff Horns, but they just don't compare to the level of opposition Errol Spence had faced, like the Shawn Porters and even the Danny Garcias of the world. So it ain't like Crawford got a weak resume. It's solid. It just doesn't compare to an Errol Spence. We possibly one fight removed from Errol Spence versus Crawford. Keith, Porter, when they had titles, they never mentioned my name. Even Porter. You know, Porter, man, I never heard Porter say anything about Crawford. And until he lost to Errol Spence, now he really aggressively calling out Terence, because
Porter
now
his best friend.
Yeah, it's an opportunity. That's what I'm saying. It's an opportunity. So I can't criticize Crawford,
but it's opportunity
for the things.
Crawford too. That's what I'm saying.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It still could happen. That's what I'm saying. Shawn could still make it happen by activating his mandatory position.
When Bomac was saying as a manager that he shouldn't fight Porter because Porter don't got no belt,
right. Well, I already
and it's not gonna prove nothing if he beat him.
Right. So I interviewed Crawford, one of his team, and he told me that if Shawn Porter pressed the issue and he activate the mandatory position, Crawford will fight him. Because see, it's all fun and games. Shawn Porter could talk the talk, but he's a mandatory now. He don't gotta ask for the fight. He don't gotta beg for the fight. All he got to do is activate the mandatory position, because Terence Crawford mandatory is due soon. So if Shawn Porter does activate his mandatory position, he will get the fight. So, and you best believe, you best believe this, Terence Crawford will not vacate the WBO belt. He ain't on no Canelo shit. He ain't on no Lomachenko stuff.
I wouldn't believe that.
Yeah, he would not vacate the belt. So he will fight Shawn if Shawn press the issue and activate the mandatory position.
You know, Shawn, now, like you said, it's all fun and games, but after the fight, in the post-fight, when Shawn Porter was talking, he was saying he wants the Terence Crawford fight.
That's what I'm talking about.
More than he wants the Errol Spence fight.
Okay, well, thank you for informing me on that.
To your point, he activates the mandatory. Yeah.
And there's nothing stopping him. There's nothing stopping him but himself, because he could activate his mandatory position and get the fight. And I could guarantee you he will get the fight if he does activate the mandatory position, right? So that's not an issue when it comes to that.
Hold it. You're not that pretty. I'm a bad man. Wait. I shook up the world. I shook up the world. I shook up the world.
I bear witness, there's only one God, Allah, and Muhammad is his final messenger. That's what I said, Larry, on the Bungle fight. Thanking you.
They call me the problem, but you could call me the can man, because anybody can get it. Africans, Americans, Dominicans, Mexicans, anybody can get it.